What we're going to look at today is we're going to look at taking the derivatives of e to the x and ln of x using chain rule. E to the x, e raised to the x, and ln x. This is something that actually lends itself very, very well to chain rule. Almost all of these problems are always chain rule. But some first things I want to go over is that the derivative of ln of x dx is ddx of ln x is just literally 1 over x. Okay? Now, however, if I have some sort of function, like u, just say d dx of ln of u being something like 2x plus 3. Anyways, it's u prime over u. Okay. Now, d dx of e to the x, so the derivative of e to the x is e to the x. Now, this is where e to the x gets a little unique. Its inside is actually its exponent. So if I have something like e to the u, okay, again, it's some function, all right? It could be cosine 2x, okay? It is u prime times e to the x. Okay, so moving on, let's look at some examples. All right, and I might be using some different colors here. Okay, so example 1. All right, I've got ln of 2x. Well, again, this is chain rule, so the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my inside. Well, what's the derivative of my inside? The derivative of my inside is 2. So, 2. And then I'm going to look at the derivative of my outside, my entire thing, which is 1 over 2x. Correct? All right, so let's multiply that through together, and I end up with 2 over 2x. My 2's cancel, and I've got 1 over x. Fairly simple, right? Yeah. Okay. Doesn't always work out to be like that, though. Okay. Let's go to example 2. I'm going to hit escape here so I can get myself to some more colors. Okay. All right, example 2. First off, let's do ln of cosine of 3x. Ooh, this actually ends up being double chain rule. Okay, so I have to do the chain rule in this case 3 different times. So let's look at the derivative of my very first one. Okay, let's pick a nice light color here. All right, 3x. So what's the derivative of 3x? Well, that's just 3. Okay, so now let's look at the derivative of inside that. So we're going to do cosine. So the derivative of cosine of 3x. Well, the derivative of cosine is just negative sine of 3x. All right, now lastly, let's look at the derivative of the whole thing. Go back to my turquoise or blue I like to use so much, and that's just 1 over everything that's written inside there. Cosine 3x. All right, well, putting it all together, doing some algebra, my negative comes out to the front. 3 sine 3x over cosine 3x. Now keep in mind, I know a lot of you like to do this. You like to try to cancel those 3's, and you can't do that. It is sine of some sort of function. But how else could I simplify this? What other sort of trigonometry do I see there? Oh yeah, sine divided by cosine is tan. Okay, next problem. Let's look at one more example using logarithms. This one you will actually have to use log properties to separate them out. So example 3 is ln of x times x squared plus 1 squared, all divided by, everything divided by the square root of 2x cubed minus 1. Well, first thing we're going to do before we even start taking derivatives is we're going to use log properties. You remember those things that I taught you the second week of school? Well, they're coming back now. And this is precisely why I taught them to you. Okay, so first off, we're going to do, division, remember, in log rules becomes subtraction. So ln of x times x squared plus 1 squared minus ln of the square root of 2x cubed minus 1. Now we're going to do some more rewriting. Oh, okay. So that multiplication right there, that becomes addition, remember? So ln of x plus ln of x squared plus 1 squared minus ln of 2x cubed minus 1. I'm going to raise that to the 1/2 because remember square root becomes 1/2. Now, do y'all remember that rule where your exponent comes down? Well, that's the next thing we're going to do before we start taking derivatives. So ln of x plus 2 times the ln of x squared plus 1 minus 1/2 times the ln of 2x cubed minus 1. Whew, now I can take the derivative. So all this was right here, that wasn't even the derivative. This was just rewrite. That was just rewriting so I could take the derivative. Well, easy ones first. Ln of x is just, derivative of ln of x is just 1 over x. Alright, well, let's look at 2. Well, I'm always going to have my 2 there. So 2 multiplied by, okay, we're going to look at the derivative of the inside first, which is 2x. Alright, now we're going to look at the derivative of the outside. So that would be ln x squared. So that's just 1 over x squared plus 1. This is, guys, you have to be organized about your work because this is when your algebra can get particularly nasty. Okay, so now I have 1/2. We're going to go to, alright, derivative of the inside again. So what's my derivative of the inside? 6x squared. 6x squared. Alright, times derivative of the outside. So derivative of ln. So 1 over 2x cubed minus 1. So now what I have to do is combine everything all together. I've got, alright, 1 over x plus 4x, remember that has a denominator of 1, multiplied by x squared plus 1, minus 6x squared stays on top. Remember that's got a denominator of 1. I'm multiplying everything. Numerators and denominators. 6x squared over 2 times 2x cubed minus 1. Alright, let's simplify that fraction real quick and we will be done. So my answer is 1 over x plus 4x over x squared plus 1 minus 3x squared over 2x cubed minus 1. There you go. That is your answer. That is your derivative. Okay, let's go to example 4. Now we're going to start doing some e to the x's. Okay, so f of x, if f of x is e to the negative x, and this is one I highly recommend you memorize, well, in e to the x, here's what you need to remember. My exponent is my inside. So what's the derivative of my exponent there? Well, that's just negative 1, right? Alright, now the derivative of the whole thing, Alright, the derivative of the whole thing is just the outside. What we're looking at is just e to the negative x. Well, that's just negative e to the negative x. That is something I highly, highly recommend you memorize. The derivative of e to the negative x is negative e to the negative x. It'll make your life in some of your algebra a whole lot easier. Okay, example 2, or example 5. This one's not too bad either. 2e to the 2x minus 1. Well, again, my 2 just kind of stays where it is. So 2 times, and then we take the derivative of the inside, which is right here. So derivative of 2x minus 1 is just 2. Okay. Now we're going to do the derivative of the entire thing. Okay. Well, how do I get the derivative of the entire thing? It is just, again, e to the 2x minus 1. I'm just talking about this part. My apologies. Okay, now multiply everything together. 2 times 2 is 4e to the 2x minus 1. Okay. One more. Actually, 2 more if we have time. This is one with e to the x. We're going to have to do product rule and chain rule. Sorry, I'll switch that to a better color for y'all to see. Okay. X squared times 4x. Let's do x squared times e to the negative 4x. Well, first thing you have to realize, ooh, I've got two things multiplied together. That's product rule. So this is a combo of product rule and chain rule. Okay, so looking at this, first off, we're going to do, okay, the derivative of the first times the second. So the derivative of x squared is 2x, just times the second. So e to the negative 4x. Plus, now we have to do the derivative of the second times the first. So let's write my first down, which is x squared. Now let's take the derivative of e to the negative 4x. Well, derivative of the inside is just, what's the derivative of negative 4x? Negative 4. And what's the derivative of the entire thing? Well, that's just e to the negative 4x. Okay, now let's do some algebra, combine it all together. I have 2x e to the negative 4x plus negative 4x squared e to the negative 4x. Now, a lot of times, especially what AP will like to do, they will like for you to look at and go, ooh, let's look at all these common factors I have. I have 2 as a common factor, I have x as a common factor, and I have e to the negative 4x as a common factor. So they will actually, your correct answer, and AP does this too, they will have you pull out 2x e to the negative 4x. Alright, well, that divided by itself is just 1. Plus, well, that's actually plus a negative sign, so let's make that just a negative. Negative. Alright, well, 2 goes into 4 twice, x goes into x squared, x times, and that would be your answer. Okay? I will give credit for either one of these, but you better be able to recognize